All right, so my name is Albert LAI. I'll be talking to you about HTML5. If you're in the wrong session, you can leave now. But if you want to hear about how incredibly frustrating it is to work in HTML5, you have come to the right session. So my background is more of a startup guy, but I've always been fascinated about games. I've always wanted to work in games. Been involved in 6 different companies. Spent 4 years starting and running a company called Contagion, which is an analytics platform. Prior to that, I was a product guy, starting a photo sharing service and a blogging network. My co-founder is creator of Yoville, which was one of the first Ville games. I learned a lot from him. So a lot of my perspective on HTML5 is going to be slightly web biased. I'm not a traditional games guy, but I am here and eager to learn about what I did wrong. So what we did is we decided that we wanted to do a mid-core HTML5 type of approach to game development. We started off as web guys, and mobile was very new to us. We started a little bit over 2 years ago, and our approach was that we thought, okay, this App Store thing is crazy. We have to wait 2 weeks for our stuff to get approved. How can we get around that when we come from a world where we can update daily or hourly? So HTML5 was clearly the way for us to go. We were, again, web guys. We were very familiar with web technologies. We liked iterating quickly. And we were also just hardcore gamers and thought, well, hardcore games aren't exactly what we want to play on a tablet or a mobile, but mid-core certainly seemed like the thing to do at the time. So we were thinking that, we're such awesome guys. We knew what we were doing. We had a lot of success on the web, and we're just going to dive in and start making mobile games. 2 years later, this is us. And the reason why this is us is because we chose a technology platform which was far, far, far too immature for what we wanted to do. The good news, though, is that we've finally come to a point where we're seeing some light at the end of this turd-filled tunnel. So, the company's 2 years old. We're fortunately profitable because we have a few games in Flash that act as very lucrative cash cows for us. We've got close to 50 employees, so we're pretty big for an independent player. The vast majority of that has been thrown at this HTML5 problem. A lot of it is in R&D. Some of it is in game design and production. We've got 3 titles that are shipped in various states. The first one that was in HTML5, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is called Mechforce, which was a disaster. We've actually since named it Mechfarce. Dark Heroes is our second collector card game. I'll talk a little bit about that, which was a derivative of Mechforce's engine and what we built there and what we were able to salvage from there. And Tiny Kingdoms is our latest flagship title. So I'll be talking about 3 things. Why HTML5, why we went down that path, why it's still maybe a good idea. Case study on Mechforce and also our latest flagship title and also the future and what that looks like for us and the industry in our opinion. So why HTML5? Mobile is a red ocean of noise, clutter, increasing install costs, and sophisticated competitors. It is a giant bloodbath out there. So how do we approach the problem as a newbie in the space trying to compete with players that are much larger than us? We felt that very much games is a very live operational centric type world where it's every bit as important to know how to merchandise and use your data as it is to have great art and development. Iteration speed was absolutely key to how we decided on using HTML5 as our platform of choice. We felt that the only way that we could compete as a relatively late player to the space was our ability to move quickly. HTML5, we thought, also de-risks development in theory. It provides you with real-time updates. And we have actually, after 2 years, achieved most of what we were hoping to do around this concept of real-time update. So much so that we are now able to have, and I wish I could demo this, but maybe at GDC, we now have the ability to have artists in Photoshop deploy code. And what I mean by this, we actually have the ability in Photoshop to move a button around that immediately gets deployed, or has the ability, if we chose to have them the ability to deploy changes directly in real time to end users. Meaning if I move a button further 2 pixels to the left on your device without a refresh, the button will actually appear 2 pixels to the left. So that's a pretty incredible thing that we're able to do now at last after 2 years of development. We can play theoretically anywhere. So obviously in browser, wherever you get a browser, you can play the games. And again, in theory, we can synchronize across platform. This is actually something that is useful and possible today. We've managed to deploy a couple of games where every single change on mobile gets reflected in desktop. We deploy it to mobile first, and we optimize for mobile first, because if it works in a mobile browser, chances are it's going to work on a 386. So performance is a challenge. I'll talk about that later. The instant play aspect is also theoretically a very cool possibility. So the ability to play from a click of a URL, making it more viral and friction-free for players. So why did we not use the following technologies? Air. Well, Air had issues at the time. It still does. There are significant performance issues with Air. It's a closed platform. We can't update dynamically. Unity, it's great for 3D, but requires a plugin for the web. It's also, at the time, wasn't great for 2D. Also, again, we're not able to update as easily in real time. Game closure, LAI, and other sort of JavaScript accelerators, pseudo HTML5 engines. Those are fantastic, except it eliminates a lot of what we believe to be the strength of HTML5 for our situation, which is the ability, again, to deploy real-time code, have it work seamlessly without a plugin, and just be able to work in the open mobile web, which means that you can just load it up from a URL from anywhere without necessarily downloading code. So there's a lot of disruption happening in distribution. We've obviously gone from physical distribution to digital distribution, aggregation, to social and mobile. And social and mobile distribution today kind of looks like this in our minds. Is that you get a notification on your iPhone, you go to the App Store, you install the application, you wait. And then after a while, it ends up in this cluster, and maybe you're off the bus by then. Now you're loading the app back up. This is from a notification from Joe asking you to play in potentially what could have been a real-time match. You're now patching it up because you don't have the latest version, because it's been 4 days since you actually downloaded the application, and you're now loading it up, and now you get to play. Problem is, that was for maybe 4 days or 4 hours or 4 minutes ago, and you no longer have the ability to capture that real-time interaction with your friend that invited you to play the game. So this is the giant series of steps that you actually go through before you can actually go and play the game from your friends. And whereas in HTML5, in theory, we have the ability to go get a URL from wherever the heck you are. You can, that URL could be on WhatsApp, it could be in Facebook on your desktop, it could be on your refrigerator door. Then at the same time, you could share the same URL and be able to play with your friends theoretically right away if you had a high-speed internet access and you had a modern browser and you had an insane team that was willing to put up with HTML5 crap for 2 years. So the Mechforce story. The Mechforce was a game that we started about a year and a half ago. High-level goals where we wanted a native-like experience, so visually indistinguishable from native. That was our goal. Playable in any modern browser and have it seamlessly cross-platform from Facebook to mobile. So in a really cool demo scenario, our player plays on the bus. He gets a URL from his friend from Facebook, clicks on it, starts playing it, goes over to his desktop, gets a seamless play experience where he gets to play the game exactly as gets left off. And the other really cool thing is that we have a single code base to manage both platforms. And one of the problems that you'll find that if you are trying to do a cross-platform game, especially in a game where you're rapidly iterating, is that if you are building a game that is in native code, it's very difficult to iterate that at the same speed as your web client, simply because you have to go through Apple in a lot of cases to get your code approved, which means that if you want to deploy interesting new features or game balancing things that might require code deployment that needs approval, you're going to have to hold that back and synchronize your web client, your web player base with your mobile player base, which is something that we didn't want to do. So the goal of this concept of native-like experience is really inspired by the fact that we did not want to make a bunch of web pages. We did not want to disguise a game behind a browser window. We wanted to make a game that looked like a game. So we made something that looked like this. The interfaces were all very much full screen with no sort of horizontal or vertical scrolling, except for subsections of the game where it made sense. You can have highly customizable mechs. It took us multiple months to figure out how we can very quickly recolor the mechs in a performance-efficient way that would work on lower-end devices. We actually hacked together some interesting ways of doing this using some very old-school forms of coding that goes back to almost the NES. We also had the ambition to try to do base building. And so again, this is pushing the very envelope of what HTML5 was meant to do, an isometric view with lots of animations on the screen. What we discovered as total noobs in this space, in spite of our prior success, was that we are not badasses and we took on way too much. So we took on tech risk, pure HTML5 trying to go cross-platform. We scaled the team from 40 to 40 people over just a one-year time frame. And we took a third risk, which was we had a very wide scope, and we tried to do procedurally generated content. My recommendation is if you're doing anything close to this, pick one of these three risks. Don't pick all three at the same time to tackle. Oh, yes. So, yes, this works on Facebook, too. So you remember that Facebook thing? It's actually turned out to be a really interesting blessing for us to have it also playable on Facebook. Facebook has actually demonstrated that it's now a sort of a neglected platform from a developer perspective. There's a lot less competition than it used to be, and we're very happy that in spite of the fact that we're sort of a mobile-first company, that we do find that we're getting quite a bit of success from the Facebook platform, primarily because customer acquisition is just that much easier. Another lesson that we learned is 60 frames per second is really, really hard with a lot of ridiculous optimization. Another mistake that we made was that we should have said no to DOM. So DOM is a technology that we use in normal, regular, everyday HTML. If you're building web pages, you'll probably be familiar with DOM. We had to rewrite a bunch of stuff. Another thing that you'll find that's interesting about working on the iOS platform is that Apple will change things without letting you know, and if you tell them that they've changed something that actually slows down DOM or something in their browser, they may or may not choose to fix it for you after an iOS upgrade 3 days before you decide to launch your game. So, Canvas is your friend. We've migrated everything to Canvas. Canvas has been a real blessing for us. In all of our new games, everything is Canvas-based. So some of you might ask, well, Canvas is great, but why not WebGL? WebGL does not work in iOS. In theory, it works in the Safari browser. Apple has chosen to not allow for WebGL. WebGL is awesome for 3D and also useful for 2D. It allows you to have much better access to the hardware, but unfortunately, it's just simply not mature enough as a technology right now. And I would argue that Canvas is still the way to go, even on Android, for various reasons. So try number 2. So we took another hack at this, and we had an interim game called Dark Heroes. Dark Heroes is a collector card game. It was sort of a side experiment that we made, and we discovered that HTML5 is fantastic for games that are collector card games or menu-driven games, simply because they don't rely on a lot of fancy animation. They rely on deeper game design and gameplay where you are not really expecting spectacular graphics. That said, we still wanted to try something that was probably overambitious. And so we built a game called Tiny Kingdoms, which was inspired by a lot of old school Final Fantasy games that we had played in the past. It's a 3-on-3 combat game, And the biggest challenge with developing this was trying to get something as simple as a 3-on-3 battle where each character had their own animations, fighting other monsters. In the initial version, we had to take off certain things, like you may notice in the screenshots that the characters don't have mouths. We had to do little compromises where we couldn't have facial animation because we couldn't have too many things happening on the screen. Since then, after a lot of optimization, we managed to get a lot more happening on screen. But these are just one of many things that we had to compromise while we were building the game. Having said that, there is hope, and I would encourage you to take a look at this game, as it is probably the most complex and sophisticated pure HTML5 game on the market today. I was going to show a video, but I'll maybe show that later of time. So moving into the future of HTML5. So our vision is that there is a world where we can have no app store, where we are delivering games through whatever happens to be your browser or your store or wherever it is that you're able to consume HTML5 of choice. It's incredibly frustrating and expensive for all of us to try to cram in this very, very narrow view of distribution that Apple and or Google has provided us. That said, we still take advantage of the App Store as a distribution platform. We package our content, our HTML5 content, up in a very similar technology to PhoneGap. And it's still today the best way to distribute your content, primarily because there are 3 dominoes that need to be knocked over for HTML5 in our minds to really take hold. The first challenge with HTML5 that we think needs to be solved is development costs. The next one is discovery and payment. And what I mean by this is it still takes anywhere, depending on what you're building, 2 to 10 times more time to build something over alternatives. But sometimes there are things that you can do in HTML5 that are actually faster. So as I mentioned before, one of the things is the ability for an artist to actually see code change in basically real time, being able to shift something a few pixels in Photoshop and immediately in front of him or her, in front of their tablet or in front of their phone, see that change and or have it deployed live if you so please. Mobile performance is still lacking, but getting faster, and this eliminates some of the software optimization costs that you may otherwise have. For those of you that haven't spent a lot of time in Asia, it's incredible what's happening in China. While there is massive fragmentation in terms of device performance, the ability to have a very, very fast device in the hands of a consumer for less than $200 is mind-blowing. That we are going to Asia and specifically China, I think will open the eyes for those that haven't seen how cheaply these phones can be manufactured and be very, very high performance. So the other challenge that we need to figure out is the discovery issue, which is what happens when you're outside the App Store. There are a number of companies out there that are starting to create publishing platforms for HTML5, like a prior speaker here, so Spill Games. There's also a lot of destination sites out there that are looking for content, which dramatically reduces your customer acquisition costs if you're able to find partners, content partners that are interested in embedding your HTML5 games along with their mobile sites that are hungry for content. But in the meantime, PhoneGap and basically any technology allows you to package up your HTML5 game and have it delivered in the App Store as a great stepping stone. And obviously on the web, it's a non-issue. You know, you're basically getting another distribution platform where it's very friction-free. With rediscovery, this is a bigger issue, but a lot of casino games have actually achieved a lot of success in pure HTML5 web-based gaming. Leo Vegas is one of them, where they have a number of slot machines and they encourage their players to bookmark their games on the home screen. Now, one of the things that we have the benefit of doing over a content site is that we can incentivize a bookmark. So for example, you can offer a certain discount or what have you by encouraging someone to bookmark their game. Now, obviously, it's very difficult to figure out whether or not they have actually a bookmark, but the point is there are ways in which you could theoretically socially engineer a bookmarking on the screen. The last one is being solved slowly but surely, frictionless in-app purchase payments. This is an incredible challenge right now. You know, we don't have the ability to have a ton of credit cards stored somewhere, or they can just have one-click transactions like you can do with the app stores. But there are payment solutions out there that are getting better. I know there are a number of companies that have been working on unannounced projects to make this more friction-free. You can go the premium SMS route, you can go PayPal, you can go Amazon. There are a number of web services. None of them are super ideal, but they do exist. The upshot of this is that you get to keep the 30% instead of giving it up to the platform. So the pros of HTML5 in summary. Mini games are good. If you're doing 2D or menu-driven game, the HTML5 can be very good. Single code base, real-time updates and deployment across platforms is incredibly powerful. You can do very aggressive A/B testing as a result. If you're iteration-driven like us and you believe that by iterating on games you can much more dramatically reduce risk, then HTML5 is great. The other longer-term opportunity is the one-click URL, which to play, which provides an alternative distribution platform. And I think for all of us out there, every single day we deal with this increased competition for customer acquisition. And I think this is one of many ways that I think you can dramatically reduce that cost in the long term. The cons are obviously everything takes longer, you need clever hacks, and sometimes these hacks become redundant or they simply don't work because of some of the changes to the platform. You still, regardless of these hacks, you are limited in the amount of animations that you can have on screen. You need really strong developers. You can't pull somebody out, and throw them in a very clean, elegant development environment like you can with Unity, for example. And the tools are very limited. For example, at the time, we had to build our own Flash exporter. Today, you can now license or get a Flash exporter from third parties, but there are still a lot of tools that we had to find that we had to build on ourselves. So as I mentioned, the strategic high-level opportunities are lower customer acquisition costs. Tablet channels I think are very much under-recognized. There are millions and millions of eyeballs out there on the tablet web, the tablet open web, that are looking for content. They are looking for content from destination sites that have game channels on the PC web that are dominated by Flash games, but simply don't have any sort of content on the mobile side. The tax-free monetization piece is also kind of interesting. We're seeing hybrid approaches to this. One example of how this is being played out and is Kik. So Kik has chosen to take on a HTML5 approach to their messaging platform by allowing content providers to deliver content in their messenger. Apple actually chose to stop them from doing that with IAPs that were tied to Kik as a way to do transactions inside of an app that wasn't the first-party app. And since then, they've moved to a model where you simply open up a browser window inside of Kik to load up other games. And time will tell how that will play out, but it would be hard for me to conceive that Apple would be able or interested in setting a precedence around stopping people from loading up a web browser to make transactions in another application. So real-time iteration, I think this is going to be really big. I think you're going to see more and more interesting tools and companies and studios that will take advantage of the ability for HTML5 to be basically refreshed in real time. So HTML5 is coming. This is my contact information. I welcome your questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Albert, for a very honest summary of your experiences. We have time for one question.
Hi. You said in the first slides that Air is a closed platform. What do you mean by that?
It's closed as in it's a technology that we have no real ability to tweak. HTML5 is obviously an open standard. When you're using something like Flash, as we've seen, it's a very volatile thing. A lot of us Flash developers, ourselves included, thought that there would be a path to mobile that was going to be elegant and good, especially given how many people here have produced Flash content at one point or another. It's obviously not as elegant as it could be or should be, and we don't have any ability to actually make it work better. So that's what I mean by a closed platform. It's not built on an open standard that we can very easily manipulate.
But it already works better, so.
Well, I mean, I think it depends on what you're looking at, right? We've done a lot of benchmarking against Air, and certain things do work better in Air. There are a lot of things that it's just, we actually managed to get much better in HTML5. In fact, one of the really surprising things is that we're actually doing an experimental game right now with a slot machine. And this is a short-term project where we're testing one of our technologies that we've built. And we found that the animation quality in the HTML5 version that we were able to build was faster and cleaner than the Flash version that we had on our shelves. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that that's going to be applicable across all cases, but it was shocking for us to see that, because 2 years ago, with the prior technology platform that we had, it was brutal. So I think we've closed the gap, if nothing else. It may not be necessarily be better across the board, but we've definitely closed the gap.
But you say the animation quality of your HTML5 demo or whatever was better than the quality of the Air one?
Yeah, it was
stage
actually
3D?
It was all 2D and
no, I mean you did the one animation was canvas,
yes,
and the other one was what, display list or stage 3D?
It was stage 3D, and we were testing it on both desktop, and I think we had a mobile version at some point testing as well. And again, it's one of those things where it's negligible. It's not necessarily one is better than the other, but if I was given the choice, at this point anyways, I think just building on an open standard gives me more comfort, even though it does cost me more.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. That was my only doubt.
We've officially run out of time for questions now, but Albert will be back at 2 o'clock
you.
sitting on a panel, so bring your questions there, and I think there'll be a lot more interesting debate going on at 2 o'clock. Thank you. Thanks, Albert.